Ruby Moskowitz's heels clacked on the concrete surrounding the condo pool, jarring everyone from their siesta in the sun. Several people raised their heads from their chase lounges to see who was making all the noise. Ruby was 90-plus years old, decked out in her aqua bathing suit with matching heels. A floppy sun hat with an aqua ribbon belted around the crown bounced over her bright red hair. "You're getting burned, Sonny," Ruby said to a man lying face down on a chase. "Your back's as red as the strawberry jam I used to make." The man rolled his head to the side and saw who was talking. "Oh my gosh," he mumbled, with his mouth tight. "How old is this broad?" Ruby struck a pose and smiled with lips smeared heavily in crimson lipstick. Every pointed joint popped sharply toward the young man as she spun around to gain his approval. No one wanted to see what she was displaying. He turned his head in the opposite direction to avoid conversation. Undeterred, Ruby clacked off, swaying her skinny self for all to view. Her overly tanned skin draped like crepe paper over her bones, wiggling like a puppy under a blanket as she sashayed around to find her own chase lounge. "Hi, Ruby. Come sit by me." Rachel Barnes rose from her chase to straighten the cushion in the vacant one beside her. "Thank you, sweetheart." Ruby sat down, then swung her scrawny legs onto the chase and leaned back to enjoy the Florida sun. "We're in heaven, you know." "Yes, Ruby, we certainly are." Rachel was used to Ruby's overly inflated impression of herself. She was one of the first people Rachel had connected with, idiosyncrasies and all, when she and her husband Joe had moved to the Breezeway condominiums 6 months earlier. Breezeway was a high-rise condominium designed for people over 50, stationed on the beautiful shores of Daytona Beach. Each morning, Rachel woke up to the sound of ocean waves crashing onto the sand. With a cup of coffee in one hand and a newspaper in the other, she sat on her balcony daily and sighed with pleasure. Yes, this truly was heaven. The couple had decided to retire to the beach instead of remaining in their 4-bedroom house since their only child was busy with her own life and living elsewhere. They had decided that 2 people in their 50s didn't need a big house, so a condo had been the perfect fit. "You taking time off from the job?" Ruby asked. She was referring to the management position of the condo that Rachel had been offered shortly after moving into the spacious apartment she and Joe occupied. Her husband had been a building contractor and plumber, so the condo owners had hired him as a maintenance man. He liked to keep busy, so it seemed like a good idea at the time. However, he rarely had a full day off with all the maintenance issues that routinely popped up. "It's my day off, Ruby." "Your hubby off too?" "No, he's working on Loretta's toilet at the moment." Ruby gave Rachel an incredulous look. "You let him work in Loretta's apartment? I wouldn't. No husband of mine, and I've had quite a few, would be allowed to step 1 foot into her place." "Loretta was a high-profile detective, Ruby, not a criminal back in the day," Rachel said. "Joe's perfectly safe around her." "I wouldn't be so sure. She may have acquired a few wrinkles and let her hair go gray, but she's still Loretta Keyes, the famous detective from Nevada." "Those days are long gone, Ruby. She lives a very quiet life now, very low-key." Rachel grinned to herself. She wondered if Ruby was jealous or just being ornery. "Well, you keep an eye on your husband. Make sure he isn't hanging out up there." Joe spend time with Loretta? Rachel hardly anticipated that ever being an issue. Joe wasn't exactly a hot dude. He wore a little roundness in the waistline and was practically bald, although he labeled himself as having thinning hair. In reality, it was a little more than that. You could almost read the newspaper from the shine atop his head. His face was ordinary and kind. He was quiet, gentle, and ambled around as he kept himself busy. This man was not a womanizer. Besides, Rachel would know immediately if he stepped out of line, and he knew that. Rachel had a way of knowing when Joe was going to sneeze before his nose even tickled.